Y'all, nobody gets it perfect on their first Thru-Hike, and I was no exception. Daddy made some mistakes. This one's probably gonna get awkward. Even more awkward than me calling myself Daddy. Let's dive in. Okay, diving straight into number 10, it is not using a poncho from the very beginning. Now, I thru-hiked the PCT. We had so little rain until the last few weeks. So I don't know that this is a huge issue, which is why I put it at number 10. But I started the trail with the Inlined Equipment Visp, which is a bonkers rain jacket. I was having to use that to protect me, use a pack liner, which you probably should always use a pack liner, but this is such a coverall solution. This is the DCF Poncho from Z-Packs, and it was amazing. I wish I would have discovered it earlier. It also folds up super small. I put it right here on the back of my pack between my foam pad and the back of my pack. And then at night when I usually almost always cowboy camp, I would use this next to my Tyvek as like a place to put my pack and my things. So I wish I would have discovered it earlier. It was awesome. Big fan. Okay, mistake number 9 was not replacing my trekking pole tips sooner. So this is a pair of Lucky poles. I've had them for years. I love them. They don't make them anymore, which is why I'm trying to get the most out of them. They're also not inexpensive. They're carbon poles. So I want to get the most out of them. And so when I started the trail, they had seen a lot of trail. And I didn't realize until halfway through the trail, my tips were super worn down and they're replaceable. I went to a gear shop, I don't remember where, maybe Big Bear or something like that. They were relatively inexpensive, maybe 10 or 15 bucks. They installed them for me in the store, and it makes such a huge difference. I didn't realize how much they were sliding. So replace your tips when they get worn. It makes a big difference. Okay, next up is carrying a cook pot and a cold soaking jar for most of the trail. So it turns out I like both. I had done both in the past, but I had committed to one or the other on shorter trips. But on this one, I kept finding myself going back and forth waffling, and so I ended up carrying both most of the time. And now I discovered that just a few weeks before the end of the trail, there's a company called Vargo. It's called the Vargo Titanium Bot, and it is a titanium cook pot that seals like a cold soaking jar so that you can use it for both. I wish I had known. Okay, mistake number 7 was carrying my bear can more than I needed to. This is the Barricade. It was incredible. It's pricey, but highly recommended. Honestly, I wish I would have rented it. They have a rental program, so I would do that next time. That's what I would suggest. Unless you were going to be outside backpacking tons in bear country, then it's worth the investment. But I carried this more than we were required to because I enjoyed having it as a camp chair. I'm a bigger dude, and it was just more comfortable for me to have some place to sit. But as the trail went on, I got more fit, more limber, lighter, and it became less of a priority to have this as a chair. And so I wish I wouldn't have had it as much as I did. And the thing is, once you have it, there's only so many opportunities to get rid of it. Next time, I'll have this less. Okay, next up is number 6, and this one's a little embarrassing. It's not planning enough for life logistics back at home. I came home to a water bill that hadn't been paid for 4 months. I don't know why they didn't turn off our water, but I had forgotten to set up autopay. To be fair, I moved 1 month, less than a month before I started the trail. I guess there's a little bit of an excuse, but I hadn't put my water bill on autopay, and it took me 4 months to realize it. And also, I came back to expired car registration. My car registration expired the month after I left, and I didn't realize it until I got back. I was really diligent. I thought that I had ticked all the boxes. I addressed this before I left the trail, but obviously not diligently enough. So if you think you're done, give it a second look. Hello, hey, if you are sitting there thinking, oh, I want to travel more, I want to go on more adventures, come with me. I host trips around the world. We've been hiking in Patagonia, we went looking for the Northern Lights in Iceland, trekking in Nepal, camping in Banff, Canada, in the Canadian Rockies. We do it all, and we have a real good time. Everyone's welcome, and all the details for any current trips, just click that little bubble up
up in the top corner, or go to my website, jjb.life/travel. And we almost always make at least one group cringy TikTok. So come hang out with us. We're a real good time.
Okay, number 5 on the list is not dialing in my sleep setup before I hit the trail. Now, all of my gear was super dialed in. I'd use my pad, my quilt, everything, my pillows. I was well acquainted with all of them. What I didn't know was how much I was going to love cowboy camping. And once I cowboy camped for the first time, it was probably 5 or 6 weeks into the trail, I was hooked. I only set up my tent maybe 10 to 15 more times on the trail. And I wish I would have known that in advance, because I would have made different shelter decisions from the beginning. If I had known how little I was going to use my shelter, and that I was only really going to use my shelter the last 3 weeks of the trail, I would have planned differently. I would have just taken my tarp tent for the majority of the trail, and I would have sent myself a more robust, maybe like my duplex, or I have a Z-Pax Altiplex, which is the Soloplex for tall people. I would have shipped one of those to me at the end of the trail. So now that I know how much I love cowboy camping, I'll do it differently next time, if there is a next time. Okay, we're getting more intense on the list because we made it to number 4. And number 4 was not eating enough during the day, specifically lunch. I kept buying and planning for lunches that needed to be like prepared or cooked or cold soaked. And I was never in the mood for it. I wasn't in the mood to stop that long. I wasn't in the mood to take the energy. And it took me way too long to realize that I needed to resupply my food, focusing on snacks, because what was more realistic for me was snacking throughout the day. And carbs were great, but I needed to include things other than just carbs. So I wish I would have been a little more purposeful in that beforehand. You've got to fuel your body. Oh, these are getting more intense and more traumatic. I don't mean to throw around the T word casually, but we're starting to get to the bigger ones. Okay, number 3 of my mistakes was shipping myself too many boxes. I'm vegetarian, so I needed some considerations in terms of some vegetarian protein and stuff. And so in the future, I would definitely ship that to myself. I would definitely plan for some luxuries, some things that I can't get on the trail to send to myself. That's totally worth it. But I sent too many. I planned to send too many boxes. There's a lot of opportunities on the trail. So unless you have a consideration like you're vegetarian or you have other dietary needs, don't plan on sending yourself tons of boxes. It's great in theory, but the logistics and reality of getting to post offices, did they arrive? And if they didn't arrive, then what do you do? And so then you're in towns, you're on the sides of mountains trying to get a sliver of reception so you can call a post office because you missed it. Just reduce it as much as possible. Unless you have those special considerations, you can get most things you need on the trail. So I would send myself way less boxes. Because of my job and sharing everything that I do, like hiking the PCT, I needed to be able to work while I was on the PCT. It just wasn't an option. If you cannot work, which obviously most people don't, and that's ideal, absolutely. But for me, I couldn't have done the Thru-Hike if I didn't work simultaneously. So it wasn't an option. I think it was an okay trade-off though. It was like a pretty small inconvenience for getting to have such an epic experience. So it's a trade-off that I'm okay with. But because of that, I needed to have my computers and technology with me. And so I kept shipping that to myself in a bounce box along the trail. And that combined with shipping myself those other boxes, it was just such a nightmare. There were so many logistical issues. And then if you missed the box, it was, reduce it. Minimize shipping boxes as much as you can. Trust me. All right, number 2 is not training before I hit the trail. Now, I keep a base level of trail running fitness. I'm a trail runner, occasional ultra runner. So I run semi-regularly. So I wasn't starting from nothing, but I didn't specifically train for the trail. And I made huge gains the first 2-3 months of the trail in terms of fitness. So clearly I could have benefited from training more in advance. And I wish I would have, simply because I felt restless in the beginning. I felt like I wasn't able to go as far as I wanted to be able to go, but I just couldn't yet. The thing is, the trail will train you. You can absolutely start a Thru-Hike with no training as long as you plan to go very slowly in the beginning and work up very, very slowly. You have to plan to essentially train on the trail. But without question, I would highly recommend training in advance in some way, and I really wish I would have. Okay, mistake number one. This one's so embarrassing because I should, without question, know better. I do know better, but I think I got too cocky. Pack your pack well in advance of starting the trail. I decided 2 hours before my flight, I decided that was the right time to test putting all of my gear in my pack for the first time, and it was a disaster. I mean, I was carrying way too much food, but it was panic. It was sheer panic. It worked, and I lasted the first 2 or 3 weeks on the trail, but immediately on the way to the airport, I ordered the larger size of the pack. I immediately knew it wasn't going to work for the whole trail. For the longer food carries, there was no way it was going to work. For that reason and all the other reasons, not only pack your pack before you go to make sure you know how it's all going to fit, if it's all going to be fit, but your gear in general, I highly suggest you use it and test it in advance. It will save you so much headache once you're on the trail if you already have those small minor kinks worked out in advance. Because a small thing like a blister on a test hike 3 months before you leave is so much easier to manage than a colossal blister you get mid-trail. Trust me, just test everything in advance. From packing my pack for the first time 2 hours before my flight left to forgetting to pay my water bill, these were the mistakes that made my hike a lot harder than it needed to be. If you're planning your own hike, be sure to check out the video description below. There are links to everything that I carried on my 2024 Pacific Crest Trail Thru-Hike. So I'm curious, let me know in the comments, what's the biggest mistake you've made on a hike? I know you have to have some doozies, and if you insist that you do not, then what's one you're afraid of making? Grab it in the comments. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with all your hiking friends. And if you want, check out the entire playlist for all my tips, thoughts, and vlogs around my 2024 PCT journey. All right, see you next time. Want to watch another video? Click here. Want to learn more about my upcoming trips? Click here. Want to subscribe and like all my videos and turn those bell notifications on?